Eggs and Issues, a monthly business forum bringing timely economic discussion to the region for 35 years. Presented by the Portland Community Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to our 2019-2020 sponsors and partners. Presenting sponsors, Bank of America and Martins Point Healthcare. Cooperating sponsors, First Light, WEX, and Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. Community Corner sponsor, Goral Palmer. Parking sponsor, CV and Mahar Engineers. Reception sponsors, Clark Insurance, KeyBank, and Veril. Tomorrow's Leaders and Entrepreneurs sponsors, Springborn Staffing Center and AAA Northern New England. Media partners, News Radio WGAN, The Forecaster, WMTW News 8, Maine Biz, with production support provided by Headlight. And thank you to our 2019-20 special community partners, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, Spectrum Healthcare Partners, the University of Southern Maine, and Southern Maine Community College. And now, please welcome Portland Community Chamber President, Jim Cohen.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Eggs and Issues. I have a slightly different script this morning. It says, hello and welcome to our first Eggs and Issues of the 2019-2020 season. So we're making a lot of progress this year, slightly new script. Congratulations and welcome. My name is Jim Cohen. I'm a partner with the law firm Veril, and I'm pleased to be your new volunteer president of the Portland Community Chamber. Although I've been involved with the Regional Chamber and Community Chamber for about 18 years and have been coming to Eggs and Issues for about 25 years, I've only been in this role for about a week. So I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be following in the footsteps of my friend and predecessor, Jack Lufkin, who's sitting here enjoying not being president, wearing the flannel shirt and kicking back a bit. A special thanks to Jack for all of his good work. Thanks also to our CEO, Quincy Hensel, and the amazing staff of the Chamber who make all of this and many other things happen. In a few minutes, I will invite Commissioner Heather Johnson to the stage. But before we begin, I have a few announcements about upcoming events. First and foremost, I would like to announce an exciting new collaboration between the Portland Regional Chamber and the New England Ocean Cluster. The Chamber will be sponsoring their ongoing Entrepreneurship in the Blue Economy series, as well as aiding in the development of the annual Walk the Working Waterfront event in June. With workforce development and regional prosperity being pillars of the Chamber's mission, we are thrilled to partner with the New England Ocean Cluster and support their initiatives and the value their work brings to all of our members. So stay tuned for New England Ocean Cluster's next event happening in October. Now, the Chamber recently conducted a member survey, and what resounded loud and clear is that members want our advocacy work before state and municipal government. The Portland Chamber has been very active in both of those arenas, and I can attest to that, both in my role as a board member as well as in my former role as a city councilor and mayor in Portland. The Chamber gets the job done. Now, one key event that is coming up this fall is an election for mayor in Portland. The election is November 5th, write that down, and the outcome of that election will, of course, be critical for Portland's future. Now, leading up to the election, the Chamber plans to follow the candidates closely so that our members can remain informed about who is running and what they stand for. We also want to encourage all of you to get involved and please vote. And when you do vote, remember that the election is a ranked choice voting election, which you've heard a lot about, I hope. So it's important to rank all of the candidates. When you don't vote for all the candidates, it's like showing up for the general election and then not showing up for the runoff election afterwards. So to make sure you don't disenfranchise yourself, please vote for all the candidates. And just a reminder, our next Eggs and Issues will be a Portland mayoral debate. All of the candidates have been invited, and the event promises to be both informative and timely. Please join us on October 10th to meet the candidates and hear what they have to say about the regional business economy. Now on to some important announcements about some other upcoming events. First, a show of hands. Who here has been to a Kegs in Issues? Great. Now raise your other hand if you've been to our annual event, Imagine Portland. Terrific. Now, if you have any hands left, I want you to raise them if you would like to save 25% and automatically be registered for all 10 Eggs and Issues, all 4 Kegs and Issues, and the annual event. Let's see a lot of hands here. We like savings, and my family in particular. If there's a sale, we're buying more. Chamber season passes are on sale now through October. To purchase your pass, visit the events section of the website, portlandregion.com. Now, our first Kegs and Issues is next Thursday, September 19th from 4:30 to 6:30 at Aura. Our speakers will be Baxter Brewing Company current CEO Luke Livingston and future CEO Jen Lever. Baxter is a wonderful local beer, also notable because my son Spencer was a summer intern at Baxter several years ago, so please attend. Also mark your calendar for our annual event, Imagine Portland, which returns to Brick South at Thompson's Point, which is a wonderful venue, on Wednesday, January 29th. Join us as we celebrate inspiring action from our regional members. And we are again partnering with Maine Green Power this month. This program has provided enough renewable energy to power all of the Eggs and Issues events from now through the rest of 2019. Maine Green Power is a voluntary power option for electricity that's available to all Maine homes and businesses. It is sponsored by the Maine Public Utilities Commission. Now, the generosity of our sponsors make our events possible. A special thanks to our Eggs and Issues presenting sponsors, Bank of America and Martins Point Healthcare. And to each of our partner sponsors who make this event possible, thank you for your generous and continued support.
Not to get into questions. I don't know when I'll be able to see you. But...
Our sponsors make this possible. Our members give us purpose. And I'd like to recognize our newest members to the Chamber. The following organizations have joined the Chamber over the past couple of months, and it's a long list with some great businesses, so please hold your applause till the end. Shabig Island Inn, Evo Kitchen and Bar, Mayo Street Arts, Freeport Metrics, Dempsey Center, Sappy Fine Paper, Bentley Mills Flooring, Deborah Boxer, MSW, Funny for Funds, Lemon Zest Home, Seabags, Experience Maine, Right Now Fitness, Gendron Commercial Brokers, Benoit's Design Company, Dirigo Business Group of Maine, Capital One, Jones Associates, Consigli Construction Company, Inc., the Matt and Gina team at Signature Homes and Real Estate Group, Falmouth Land Trust, Maine Mortgage Solutions, LLC, Casco Bay Smiles, Great Diamond Partners, Mosher Law Firm, LLC, Cumberland Crossing, New England Ocean Cluster, Dream Big, DBA Southern Maine 3D, Threesome D, a 3D crystal company, E2 Tech, Limo Services in Maine, Maglev Maine, Kayla Case Consulting, LLC, 350 Maine, Beals Ice Cream Old Port, Seaport Credit Union, Portland Old Port, Internal Revenue Service, Maze, yes, Internal Revenue Service, Maze Columbian Street Food, Olympia Snow's Women Leadership Institute, Po' Boys and Pickles, Rubbish, and thank you to all of those new members. Whew, that was a long list. Thank you again. We obviously greatly appreciate your membership in our organization and look forward to working alongside you. Welcome. AAA Northern New England and Springborn Staffing provide support for Tomorrow's Leaders and Entrepreneurs program, which allows area high school and college students to attend Eggs and Issues. With us today, we have students from, amongst others, USM, SMCC, Westbrook, and Gorham. If you could please stand and be recognized. Headlight Audiovisual provides us with our technical support, and the video from today's keynote presentation will be available shortly on the Chamber's website and on our YouTube channel. And our FMI sponsor is the Portland Public Library. who will be providing additional information on today's topic. All attendees will receive this information from the Chamber via email in the coming week. Our newest sponsor for the 2019-2020 season is Goral Palmer for our Community Corner program. And today's featured nonprofit organization is the Maine Marathon. The Maine Marathon is the largest marathon in the state. Maine Marathon is managed and organized by the nonprofit Maine Track Club. And this year's Maine Marathon, scheduled for Sunday, October 6th, will include over 3,700 entrants and about 800 volunteers. The Maine Marathon pays no wages or salaries. All income is donated to charities. And this year, $60,000 will be distributed to 5 primary beneficiaries: Eastern Trail Alliance, Ripple Effect, Winter Kids, Portland Community Squash, and Girls on the Run. Additional funds will be provided to over 30 charitable organizations. Over $4.7 million has been donated by the Maine Marathon to charities since 1997. That's amazing. So with us today for the Maine Marathon are Bob Dunphy, Chandra Leister, Linda Davis, Andrea Connor, Caitlin Willett, and Becky Winslow. So please stand and be recognized. And to show our appreciation and support, the Chamber will be making a contribution to the 2019 Maine Marathon beneficiaries. Now on to today's presentation. Before I introduce today's speaker, I want to remind everyone that there will be a Q&A after Commissioner Johnson's remarks. Please use one of the microphones that you see set up in the middle of the room. State your name, organization, and your question to the Commissioner. With us today is Heather Johnson, Commissioner of Maine's Department of Economic and Community Development. With more than 25 years of experience in both the private and public realms, Commissioner Johnson oversees more than 24 experts across several bureaus with a collective mission of helping Maine communities and businesses prosper. This is accomplished through a variety of programs that provide everything from targeted tax relief to community block grants to tourism marketing. Today, Commissioner Johnson will cover the goals and priorities of the department under Governor Mills, as well as update us on Maine's first formal 10-year strategic economic development plan, which is focused on enhancing growth and addressing Maine's workforce challenges. I have had the pleasure of working with Commissioner Johnson for the past several years in Augusta, and I can attest to the great work that she does. So please join me in welcoming Commissioner Heather Johnson.
So good morning. Thank you, Jim, for that nice introduction. I'm pleased to be here. Happy Friday, everybody. I'd like to thank Quincy and Tommy and the Portland Chamber for inviting me this morning. You know, it's a really great opportunity to get to talk about some of the work we're doing and get some real feedback, because I think we are in the stage where we're looking for a lot of that feedback right now as we move forward, and we can talk about that in a minute. It was interesting earlier this morning as I was kind of grabbing my snacks in the other room, and actually over the last week I've gotten the same question a number of times, which is, what surprised you most? I guess now that we've been at this for 9 months or so, people are, you know, wanting to know where we are and what that looks like. And I will tell you, the thing that has surprised me most or the number of people who want to help and who want to collaborate and who want to have some level of engagement to help us work through things. I have been surprised at how many good projects there are and how many good opportunities there are and what's going on already in our state that we just hadn't been talking about, or I, for whatever reason, wasn't aware of. So, you know, this has been such a pleasant surprise as we get started. Certainly I don't want to give the impression that everything's wonderful, right? We have some serious issues that we need to be focused on and work through, but I think that collaboration is a big part of the solutions, and we'll get to that in a minute. So going back to what was I surprised about, what I wasn't surprised about, frankly, are some of the things that I think we need to be focused on. In December, at that point, I met with then Governor-elect Mills to talk about this role and and what my vision for it was and what hers were. And I went in with kind of 5 things that I thought we needed to focus on. And really those 5 things haven't changed dramatically in the last 9 months. So if you think about kind of the first one is grow and strengthen the workforce. We're going to talk a lot about workforces a little bit later this morning, and I know this whole Eggs and Issues series is really going to have a workforce undercurrent to it. So I think that's a great opportunity for us to all look at some solutions there. The second one was ubiquitous connectivity, and certainly this is where Jim and I had worked together before, but how do we connect this state? How do we connect the state in a way that is competitive with other states? I think as you talk about rural Maine, that's just functional broadband and connecting fiber up into these markets so that they can have access. When you talk about markets like Portland, though, it's really about 5G and 5G evolution and how do we create speeds that allow businesses here to be competitive? How do we create opportunities for not just businesses to consume content, but to create it and to sell it and to upload it and be part of these global markets? And so this connectivity piece is critically important. The third is really thinking about small business. How do we, if 95% of our businesses would be considered small businesses, how do we streamline our resources? How do we find ways to be supportive in the ways that they need us to be? As a state, we are never going to be the market makers. That's not our role or not what we see our role as. We see it as creating an environment and opportunity that allows businesses to be successful. And so how do we make it easy for a small business to say, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. What do I need to do in order to achieve that goal? And how can the state help? And who else can help? Because we actually have a lot of resources. And we were at this Life Sciences Summit on Friday talking about the life sciences sector. And I was shocked at kind of the funding opportunities and the resources. And as we look at kind of this network of resources in the state, they don't all sit at the state level, but they are available to people in our state. How do we weave that network for small businesses so that they can access that network and take advantage of it? And so that's some work that we'll talk about. We need to focus on our existing businesses, right? It's fun to talk about what else, but the reality is we have businesses that are investing in Maine today, and we need to make that easier for them to do. There's a lot of talk about regulatory environments and stabilization of the marketplace. As I talk to businesses, I don't hear any concerns about the standards, right? The standards are high, and businesses, as I talk to them, are glad for that, right? The quality of life in Maine and our natural resource is important to all of us. And so that's not the issue. The issue is how do you navigate the system, and therefore our responsibility is how do we make that easier? How do we create an environment where it's much more predictable? And I know the governor's very focused in this place, not just as it relates to regulatory, but as it relates to the broader investment environment. And then the last one is we need to think about branding and selling our state in a way that attracts business investment, it attracts workforce attraction, it attracts people. So we were just talking about this morning, we have 37 million visitors come to our state every year, sorry. Economy solved, I'm gonna go home. No, just retired myself. There were 37 million people come to our state every year. And what we see are most of them come back. So there's something here that creates a connection for people. But it's much easier for us to talk about what we don't do well, and to not have a unified message about some of the things that we do well. And so we're gonna talk about a state branding campaign that looks to create an umbrella brand that everybody can utilize and be supported by. If you sell Maine salmon at a grocery store, you get $2 more a pound because it was harvested in Maine. We have a lot of other industries that could take advantage of that to the extent that we get this branding right and we tell our story right, that people can see that quality, they understand that craftsmanship. You know, we talk a lot about kind of how do we take kind of raw materials and get them to market, and what's the value, and how do we show that value and talk about that value in a way that's different because things are made here by Maine people, and they have a different level of value. So this branding work is important, and we expect to create a domestic export model and programming out of that as well. But that will be a key part of how we move forward and how we talk about some of the work that we're doing. And as we think about workforce attraction, it will certainly be there. So these were the 5 that I came up with. Like I said, they didn't change much. Maybe the how changed a little bit. The who to partner with to get the work done has changed a little bit as I learn and meet other people and figure out who's doing what work. But the reality is, I'm guessing anybody in this room would have come up with something that looks pretty close to that. There's not a lot of magic to this work. It's really about finding some solutions, getting started, and then getting on to the next solution and getting started. But it became clear that one of the things we don't have as a state is an economic plan. There was no roadmap that looks at where are our assets, how do we want to leverage those assets, how do we all work together to get to that outcome. And as kind of I said in what I was most surprised with is how people do want to partner and help. If we don't have a roadmap, it's really complicated and difficult for people to be able to do that. So the governor set out to create a 10-year economic plan. And this 10-year plan is in the development stage now. We started in, I guess, late March, looking at what we need to do and how we want to move forward. We started with thinking about where are we today? What have the barriers been? What are our assets? How do we think about those assets? And a whole bunch of research. And between kind of, I guess, late April and today, we've had over 600 people involved in the plan in one way or another, providing input, reviewing information, offering information. We've gotten free research from a whole bunch of places. The university has jumped in with both feet and tried to be helpful with economists and people looking at data and thinking about research and development particularly. So we have 3 goals: drive value-added contribution per job, equitably grow our wages, and grow workforce. This value-added contribution is really about creating value and growing the GDP at the same time. The second one looks at wage growth. So if we grow and become and add value into our economy, how do those wages grow? And how do we make sure they grow kind of across categories? So they not only grow if you're a scientist, but they grow if you're in the hospitality sector, or they grow if you're a teacher, or they grow in rural communities, they grow in urban communities. How do we help facilitate an economy that allows everyone to participate effectively? And then grow the workforce. So we'll spend a lot of time maybe this morning talking about workforce, but I'd even like to think about reshaping the workforce discussion. Sometimes, and I think connectivity may have gotten to this place too, sometimes we talk a lot about a particular issue and it gets to be a universal discussion that maybe is difficult then to rein in and make progress. So as we think about workforce, one of the things that we'd like to kind of start to shift the dialogue on a little bit is really thinking about talent. How do you attract talent? How do we retain talent? How do we leverage programs like the Tomorrow's Leaders? So thank you all for being here. We hope you stay. How do we leverage programs like that, right, to get engagement from students and from young people across our state? How do we figure out what they care about and make sure that there's a path there? So as we look at workforce, we're going to look at it a couple of different ways, but I think there's no one right answer, right? There are a lot of things that will have to kind of be piecemealed together to get us to the solution. We look at workforce kind of by sector. So how do we drive innovation in forest products as an example? What does that look like? What do you need to strengthen the existing businesses that are in the forest product sector? And then how do you create diversification and innovation from those sectors that will help strengthen that and give you growth and new opportunity? The reality is we don't have enough loggers, right? And nobody's having that discussion. Today, with the forest products business that we have today, we don't have enough loggers. And I'm guessing most people don't know that or wouldn't think about it that way. And so if we grow and diversify that industry, we won't be able to support that growth in an effective way without the continuum of workforce that it takes. You can't create nanocellulose without somebody getting a tree out of the woods. And so as we think about kind of these broader supply chains, if you think about life sciences, if you think about aquaculture, if you think about some of these other pieces, you can't grow a life sciences business without strong technology leaders, without good software developers, without researchers, without people that can calibrate equipment. So if you think about it like that, there's a broad range of things that we need to do, and the way that we can start talking about this economy to make sure that everybody's got a place, right? There is a place for everyone in our economy, and they're all valuable, and we need everyone to contribute. So that's kind of where we're at. There is certainly, as you all know, the market's really tight right now. We have an aging demographic, so you can expect, right, that people will retire, and then the data says that we'll retire more people per year than we add into the workforce unless we do something about that. So then the logical question is, what do you do, right? And that's the work that's going on right now. And there's a lot of work going on, so it's not all happening as part of the strategic plan, but we are trying to capture a lot of that work and really understand what's there so that it can be accounted for as part of this woven network of this approach. I was with a business yesterday. I didn't see them here this morning, but I was with them yesterday, and they said, we're going to invest way more in attracting people to Maine than the state ever will, so just give us a couple of tools and we'll go do the work. And the reality is he was right. They will always spend more money out looking for their workforce than we will ever do in just being able to attract people. So some of that looks at, how do you streamline programs and make them easy to market for businesses so that you can use it as an attraction tool. So that's one of the pieces that's being developed. One of the pieces that's being developed is how do we capture our young people and keep them here and have them see those opportunities. One of the strategies you'll actually see in Portland at the end of this year, kind of end of November to December. So as you can see, there's some of these things that are fairly clear, and instead of waiting till the plan's done and then you write an implementation plan and then you go do the work, we've started to parallel path some of the work where it became really obvious that it needs to be done. And so we will have, in partnership with Live and Work in Maine, what's called a boomerang campaign. So they actually affectionately call me Boomerang One, because it fits that model, right? It's people that are from Maine, that love Maine, right? That have this connection to Maine, but they go and leave for a variety of reasons, leave for economic opportunities, for personal opportunities, whatever the case might be, but that are likely to be home at some point for a winter holiday and may be thinking about, geez, what else should I do? What's my next step? How do we make it easy for them to see the economic opportunity that exists here today? How do we think about our aging population in a way that's helpful? So, no, I'm not going to do the show of hands, but nobody wants to say no to their grandmother, right? So if their grandmother is effectively armed with tools that can help talk to them about these economic opportunities, we can. Somebody did say no to their grandmother back then. We can effectively mobilize people that are in Maine to attract people to Maine. And this is, a lot of times it's a one-on-one discussion, right, that really changes the dynamic and shows people that there's opportunity. Because that a lot of times that first discussion is, yeah, well, there's nothing interesting for me to do, or there's nothing competitive for me to do, or I can't make a good living here. And the reality is all of those are wrong, right? We just haven't told people they're wrong. And we haven't shown people where these opportunities sit and how they sit. And so that's part of this discussion. And this will be a pilot. We'll see how it works. But we do strongly believe that people that have a connection to Maine will be the easiest people to attract back to Maine. We also want to look at really clear funnels for sectors to say, where are these students? Where are they learning these trades and these skills, these opportunities, and how do we bring them here? How do we talk to them about what's going on here? How do we lower barriers to get them to come and frankly, just try Maine, because all they've got to do is try it and they'll stay. Or they'll stay for a while, they'll try it later. But we feel really confident that if we can get people to include Maine in their consideration set, that we'll win more than our fair share of those discussions. So that's a really important part of how we do some of that work. We've had a lot of partnership with the education systems because, I mean, this certainly isn't the job I expected to have. I think, as people enter the workforce now, they're changing careers, they're trying things, they're learning, and then they're maybe shifting and adjusting. So how do we lower the barrier for people to do that? Either people that are in Maine or people that are kind of looking at second and third stages of their career. Is that micro-credentialing? Is that short burst education systems that have some type of credential of value? Is it a longer degree program? How could that work? So we're partnering with private universities, the community college, and the University of Maine system to really look at those opportunities and create a structure that is clear and easy for people to understand and for businesses to use as a resource. I mean, we have very creative, resilient, talented people in Maine. This is a great chance and a great time for them to look at what do they really want to do? How might they move from kind of an underemployed employee to a fully employed employee, to somebody that's really having an opportunity to do exactly what they want to do. Those skills and that opportunity isn't out of reach for people. We just haven't talked about that and created those really clear and easy pathways for people to be able to make some of those changes. We also have a lot of folks that don't see themselves in our economy today, and we need to work on that for a variety of reasons, but there are clearer things that we can do to attract people that are in Maine but not currently part of the labor pool into the labor pool, and frankly, we need everybody to be part of this economy, and we can create opportunity for everyone as well. You know, as we think about this talent discussion, what's the first thing you think of? When you go on a trip, the first person that gives you an impression of wherever you are is the first person you meet in the hotel that you're staying at. And so talent, right, is important. How do we make that experience one that connects with people? And that happens across the continuum of the economy. It happens in tourism. It will happen in any business sector that we have. So really kind of helping people and helping us attract people and think about it in a talent and value way, I think is useful. So that work is all going on from a process perspective. You know, we've gone through all of this work, taken a lot of input, and now we're drafting solutions. So drafting solutions for all three of these goals, targeted to the 3 goals. We have 10 working committees. If you have interest in any specific area, let us know if you want for the next 6 weeks to spend a bunch of time working on this work. Or if you just want to look at it, there is a website on the DECD page that you can go to that shows you a lot of the solutions as they're being developed, things that are being considered. Some of these will never see the light of day, but they are being considered, and we want to put them out there so that people can weigh in and say, geez, you didn't think about this, or could you think about this, or we see this as an opportunity. We see that. Hi. We see this as an opportunity that you haven't considered. And frankly, we need that because this is too important to have it be one person's plan or one administration's plan. This is the state's plan, and really has been drafted with a lot of kind of input from all sectors and from lots of regions, and isn't about an Augusta plan, it's about a state plan and the state development of that. So on Tuesday, the 17th, we will talk about those solutions in a reasonable amount of detail. We'll talk about things that we're looking at, more specifics than what I did today around workforce and workforce attraction and talent development. We'll talk about, and we'll look at solutions in the regulatory scheme. We'll talk about traded sectors and where's that value and how do we create domestic exports that businesses can leverage. And there are a variety of other things that will be there. And we're looking for input. Again, should be a collaborative process. And so then all of that's great. Then maybe the most important piece is an implementation plan. What happens after this is all drafted? How does it not just sit on a couple people's desks and never see the light of day and never be integrated into the work that goes on in the community? So this is designed to be a roadmap. And as we work through these next couple of months, because the target is to have it on the governor's desk November 15th. She's certainly been very, very involved along the way, so we're careful about how we talk about that. But the delivery would be the 15th. That gives us a couple of weeks to kind of tweak and adjust as we need to, and then have a more final product ready by the last week in November. So part of that looks at then what do you do? What are the metrics? how do you test if you're doing it right or having success or not having success? Certainly the idea wouldn't be you wait 10 years and see did it happen or not happen. The plan would be, a lot, but a lot of these economic development things aren't magic, right? They don't happen overnight. So you've got to be a little bit more creative about creating leading metrics that people can see. Is this working or isn't it working? And is it not working because of the way it's being implemented, or is it not working because it was the wrong goal, or do we just need to make changes? And so that work is a significant part of this. So next week and over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be reaching out to figure out how we implement this. How do organizations, businesses, communities see themselves in this plan, and what piece will they take? As an example, yesterday with the Maine Municipal Association, we were talking about this boomerang plan, and then I realized, well, communities are a lot closer to the individual than we are. So what role do they want to play, right? Do they want to help us market in their own towns? And how would that look and feel? And so how do they kind of extend this project and component into their communities? Those are the types of ideas that we're looking for and want to partner on. So I guess with that, I'm getting the wave, so I will wrap up, and I think we're going to open up to some questions. Quincy, I can't see the mic, so. Okay.
Good morning, Heather.
Hi.
Susan Morris. I have homes in Portland, Booth Bay, and near Millinocket. Very small homes, but 3.
Thank you.
Thinking of the boomerang, folks, I believe that one way we could be reaching people who might return or just choose Portland and all parts of Maine are through the vacation rental, the Airbnb model. And I don't know if it's on the radar screen, but I would suggest that many young people, as well as boomers, when they do consider coming to Maine and don't want to stay with grandma, are staying in the Airbnbs.
Yep.
And there are hundreds of them. And I realize that it will look very different for South Portland than it does for Bar Harbor, than it does for Millinocket, where we need to house the craziest marathon of the year. But I'm just curious if that is even on the radar screen about getting information and even a training program for all those that are the best ambassadors for why to live in Maine. And then I'm also going to add a second one. You didn't mention, you can't mention everything, the outdoor recreation endeavor. And I think that ties in with the branding and tourism. And I just wondered if you could speak for a moment about the work that you and Carol Ann are doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the first one I'm hoping somebody's taken a note on, because that's a really good idea and we should include that. So thank you for that. Those are the kind of ideas, right, that if we piece a bunch of those together, are going to kind of get us where we want to go. So thank you. We'll make sure that gets added in. And then the outdoor recreation, just to get everybody's stage set, we were able to get an Office of Outdoor Recreation approved through the legislative session last session. And that really focuses on creating kind of outdoor recreation opportunities in our state. It looks at the outdoor economy. It looks at manufacturers in the outdoor economy and really tries to facilitate that work. Improvements in public health and improvements in drug treatment. There are so many tentacles in outdoor recreation that are incredibly valuable, not to mention just quality of life and the opportunity for Maine residents to take advantage of some of our great assets. So thanks for that question. Yeah.
Hi, Craig Lapine from Cultivating Community here in Portland.
Yeah.
I was very excited this session that the legislature took a stand that Maine is going to try to end hunger by 2030. I was a little disappointed, and I know this was a decision by the legislature to put that mandate with my friend, the Commissioner of Agriculture, and I have a lot of faith in Commissioner Beal, but I would have much rather seen that mandate with you, because I don't think it's a food question. I think it's an economic development question. So if you could give us, I know the report is on its way, but if you could give us a little preview of what you're seeing in those strategies to drive wage growth and to drive it in an equitable way, I'd be excited to hear where you think that's going.
Great, yeah, thank you for the question. So Commissioner Beal is incredibly collaborative, and I think we will work together on that, because I think, you know, it may take both of our departments to try to work together to help solve some of those challenges, certainly. As it relates to wage growth, we're seeing a number of things. We're seeing opportunities for people to upskill right now skills to take that next job. Really, if you look at economic mobility, what we see are people at the top, not a surprise, right? People at the top of the socioeconomic chain are much more mobile and able to move around and take those risks around jobs and think differently about what they want their careers to look like. And sometimes people on the low to moderate income scale are less able to have that mobility. And so for us, really, if we can think about how do we help them in place, how do we lower those barriers for that career transition work? How do we help create the community college system specifically, and the university I know is speaking about it as well, but how do you create these microsystems that create credentials of value, and that value is then translated into wages? And so I think those are a couple of the things that are underway. The other thing that we're aggressively looking at from a design perspective is how do you create supply chain opportunities throughout the state? So as an example, if you're gonna grow salmon, you're probably gonna do that on the coast, but where you add value to that salmon can happen a lot of different places along the logistics chain. And so how do we help facilitate some of that work and incent businesses to find creative solutions to that? It helps balance the workforce challenges. It helps grow wages in some of our other markets. And it creates a much better business outcome for the business. So some of it is just about being thoughtful about how we look at it. I know the team's working on a number of other things, though. Be happy to get some of that out too. Oh, sorry.
No
I didn't
worries.
realize. Sorry.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Martin. I'm a business owner. I have a certain passion for the Maine Technology Institute. I've been involved in that over the years, for the last 20 years, from its inception till today. I want to know if it's going to still enjoy support from the Mills administration, and is it still part of your economic development focus? Because it is a really good metrics-driven organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So MTI actually sits as part of DECD,
Yeah.
and it's an incredibly important part of how we look at innovation, how we scale, how we support the scaling of businesses, how we think about R&D and getting R&D from an academic body of work to a commercialized body of work, right? How we help businesses go through that kind of valley where there's not a lot of investment because it's not really proven to scale yet. So yeah, MTI is an incredibly important part of the work that we're doing. Thank you for that question. I know and just as a plug for them, I'm going to get the date wrong, so I'm not going to give a date, but the 20th anniversary of MTI is coming up first week in October, and there will be a big event in Freeport if anybody's interested.
I think
Jonah.
she's next.
Okay, you're next.
Hi. Hi, my name is Catherine Hewlett, and I work for Word Lab, which is a public relations apprenticeship program. And I actually am a boomerang Mainer. I was born and raised in Falmouth, or Portland, and I moved to New York City, and I recently came back to Maine to work at it's a white-collar apprenticeship program, certified apprenticeship with the Department of Labor. And for me, it's a career transition, but for my colleagues, a lot of them are straight out of, the University of Maine system. And I'm wondering how the Mills organization and the Department of Labor are working to strengthen the apprenticeship programs and working with the universities to create sort of that pipeline that you were talking about through the universities and skilled programs or skilled jobs, because I think there is this gap between education and entry-level positions, because there aren't a lot of entry-level positions here in Maine. And I just wanted to actually just give a shout out to the apprenticeship program, because it has really been helpful for me coming back into Maine and changing my career, and also getting education while getting my foot in the door in the business community in Maine.
Great. Well, first off, welcome back. Thank you. One down. So, I think the apprenticeship program is a really valuable tool. As we talk about, I was just talking on the question before about kind of helping people get these credentials of value and other things. Well, that's all great, right, on paper, but if you're trying to feed your family and you're trying to pay your mortgage and you're trying to pay the electric bill or whatever else it might be, being able to get paid in that process is an important one. And that's one of the things that lowers the barrier to make some of these changes and creates the opportunity for some of this mobility. So we are continuing to look at a number of programs that are either the apprentice program or similar to the apprentice program that will allow people to kind of make these transitions and grow. So thank you. We think it's a valuable, really valuable resource as well.
Good morning. I'm Paula Mahoney. I run a marketing consulting firm called Words at Work. And we had an opening this summer, and I'm happy to say that we had a plethora of professional resumes from out of state. And
Great.
It was really tough, but we finally found someone that is going to knock her. Anyway, she'll be an exciting addition. So I haven't found it to be tough to attract professional talent. I'm the mother of and mother-in-law of two who will be soon boomerangs. And one thing that I wanted to suggest is that, so my two are working on a long-range plan for coming back to Maine. Mm-hmm. And they have their steps in the process. And I think that might catch other people by surprise, that it's not just seeing the job that you think you want that brings you back home. There's a process to figuring it out. So I would urge you to think about that. But more importantly, with our clients here in Maine, we see a real lack of workforce. Mm-hmm. We have several clients who are down 50% of their staffing, which really impacts their ability to get jobs done. Right. These are not software level jobs. These are not high-tech jobs. These are the people that we interact with every day who help support our infrastructure. So I hope that when you talk about talent, you're talking about really a broad spectrum of talent, and that you can help develop stories to show that even somebody who's cleaning mold out of someone's basement has a career path in that business and a real life that they can live here. So that's my urge.
Great. Yeah, so this roadmap to getting people back is an interesting one because we're trying to understand what information, how do we create these data sets that will help people as they want to make these decisions. So I'd be interested maybe offline to talk a little bit with you about that. But to the second part of your discussion around, we really see talent at the entire continuum, right? Whatever you do, be really good at it, and we should help you be good at it, right? And achieve whatever your goals are. Because really the economy is driven on every individual's goal. It's not driven on our goals, right? My goal is different than somebody else's goal. And so how do we help people do that? And how do we remove the barriers for people to be able to enter, even if they are concerned about entering the workforce, even if they are concerned about, do they have the right skills? Do they have the right talents? How do we help kind of move that forward? But yeah, we will absolutely look at workforce as a continuum, and there's a spot for everyone. And how do we start telling that story to third graders? Thank you.
Hi, good morning,
We have time
Commissioner.
for two more questions. Excuse me.
Well, great. Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you for being here this morning. My name is Jordan Zema. I am a graduate student at the University of Southern Maine studying social work. I'm not a boomeranger. I graduated from there in 2016, and in May of 2020, I will be graduating again from my alma mater. So I'm more interested in wondering about how do we keep people in Maine, and especially young folks. If I had left to go somewhere else, I would not have made the connections that I have made as my undergraduate and not be able to leverage those connections as strongly. So this is sort of an extension of a question that was asked earlier about apprenticeship programs, but I'm interested in wondering about expanding internships, paid internships and stipends with businesses and universities. Washington, the state of Washington, recently passed the Workforce Education Investment Act, and the legislators and businesses there were able to work together, and businesses recognize that we're recruiting and hiring a lot of students from our higher education programs and universities. There are barriers and financial barriers to get into school. If we can alleviate some of those barriers and mitigate them through these apprenticeships and internships, and by asking tech companies, asking big businesses and corporations to help cover the costs of tuition for our students, how is that going to change our future and our workforce? Now, Maine's economic landscape definitely looks different than Washington's. I'm wondering how we might be able to use that framework and that model and reshape it to Maine's businesses and make it align with our economic landscape.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's interesting. My counterpart in Washington is actually in Bar Harbor right now. So we were together over the weekend talking about workforce and some of the things that they're doing, and connectivity was the other thing that we were talking about, because they're doing some interesting work out there as well. We should pull that legislation though and kind of take a look through it and see what's in it and see what maybe we can figure out if there's leverage points for us. So I'm not familiar with that specific legislation, but we'll do that. The other thing I would say is I think businesses in our communities have been really flexible about thinking about creative solutions to this challenge and to their specific challenge, and then obviously you'd aggregate that up into a broader look. So we have a lot of opportunity right now to shape some of that work in partnership with the private sector. So I think your point's well taken. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner. Yeah. Thank you very much for your remarks. I'm Christina Egan. I'm the director of the Greater Portland Council of Governments. And you spoke today about driving sustainable economic growth for all of Maine, which is great, and some of those big strategies around branding for the state, building up the educational programs for the workforce. But different regions have different needs as well. And in Greater Portland, we've done some recent research that shows that we're kind of hollowing out the housing choices for the middle class, and it's increasingly unaffordable for the workforce that we need to live here. And so people are moving further and further out, which means that then they're caught in a lot of traffic, and that's also a downward pressure on our economy. So I'm wondering if you could share some of your thoughts about what we need to do in this region in order to make sure that we have the housing that's available, we have a public transportation system that works, that gets everybody around to build our economy here as well as the rest of Maine.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. You know, this is a place maybe where the state can be most helpful from an economic perspective, right, or these infrastructure components, because that's what people look to us to do in partnership with the local communities. Workforce housing is certainly in Portland and in some of the southern Maine markets that are kind of the prices are continuing to grow. It is a real challenge. So there are a number of things I think Maine State Housing is looking at that we're partnering with them around some funding pieces to figure out how do we create new opportunities for people. We're also looking at some other creative things that might be private sector driven, but that we could help infuse. As it relates to public transportation, there are a couple of, I'm getting the hook. As it relates to public transportation, there are a couple of things too that we're looking at that maybe aren't as traditional public transportation, because those are pretty significant infrastructure spends, but there are some maybe more kind of small test things that we can try to see, you know, can we get ride sharing working? Can we get companies credits for ride shares? Can we incent that behavior and alleviate some of the system pressure without creating additional infrastructure? So we're gonna try some of those things first, but also in parallel be evaluating other public transportation options. So thank you everybody, we really appreciate your time. Thanks, Jim.
In the weeks and months ahead, and to continuing a regional and statewide dialogue. So, as we conclude this year's first Eggs and Issues of the season, another reminder that our next Eggs and Issues is Thursday, October 10th, and will be a Portland mayoral debate. Don't miss a single Eggs and Issues. Visit our website at portlandregion.com and check out our expanded events calendar. Stay up to date with all of our events by subscribing to our newsletter. Stay connected to the Chamber via Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Upcoming Chamber event lists are also available on your tables to take with you, so please help yourselves. Thank you again for starting your morning with us each month. We've had a fantastic Eggs and Issues season lined up, and we look forward to seeing all of you at the next event. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.